In my early 20s, I suffered with anxiety disorder. This resulted in regular panic attacks and low self-esteem. Back in 1996, there wasn't the exposure and support networks for mental ill health that there is now, so as a consequence of not knowing what was wrong with me, I was sliding into further negative thoughts and began questioning how much longer I could cope in my body. My parents didn't understand, and from what I recall, argued with me when I was at my lowest. In 1998, and after an ambulance from work to A&E due to panic attacks when 22 years old, I began educating myself about anxiety, started going to the gym and socialising more whilst becoming healthier. Without realising at the time, it was building my confidence, and although I sometimes get anxious today, I am able to understand what is happening and not panic, ride the wave and come out the other side unscathed.
So my name's Greg Cousin, I'm one of the wellbeing advisors here at Sunderland University. So I help people, I do CB related activities with them, I do therapies, I do single session therapy. But I've been involved in mental health, I suppose, for quite a long time. With men's mental health, it becomes a crisis point, I suppose. That's what happens with men. So our actual data shows that men engage a lot less than women. And I said before, they engage at crisis point as well. But men tend to come along wanting to learn how to deal with that stress there and then, get rid of that stress there and then. Not necessarily how to cope with the next one as well, and learn those strategies and techniques that women are much more likely to engage in than men are. The way men tend to like to de-stress, though, is by doing something. So it's often you'll find when you're talking to men, I need to go out and do something physical to get that stress. So you'll find a lot of men go to the gym, or a lot of men play sports to help deal with that stress, to help give them some form of coping strategy. It's also a great way for men to engage with other men, because men also like to do things when they're engaging with others. You won't find often men sitting in a coffee shop having a chat over a cup of coffee. You'll find them wanting to go out and play a game of cards or play a game of football or do something on top of what they're doing, where the talking is the secondary activity. But actually, it's the primary activity in your mental well-being. Talk to each other, chat, not just for men, for women as well, but to get involved in all of those things that will help your mental health, because people are good for you. So is there enough safe spaces for men? It depends on the man. I suppose it depends on the individual. You'll have certain demographics of people who do go for these things. I would say, again, it's at crisis point when men do tend to reach out and then learn that these things are wonderful. Andy's Mind Clubs does wonderful things for people, but there's a lot of other agencies that do. But men tend, again, not to seek them out until they absolutely need to. And it's something that I suppose we need to learn as men, not to do that, to actually seeking that help, seeking those other people early is the thing to do. To walk into one of these clubs and say, this is my vulnerability, let me expose this to all of you, is very difficult. I suppose as anyone, not just men, it's very difficult for women. But as men who've since childhood been told to internalise these things, it's something that we've got to become safe with beforehand. But again, these clubs can be fabulous for doing that, for leaving time for people to listen to others talking, to feel safe in that way, to feel comfortable around those other people talking. And I suppose that's where it's good, where it's the secondary activity, where speaking is the secondary activity, because you'll find people will engage a lot more while they're doing something else, and they'll talk about things while they're doing something else. So why are men not likely to speak up? It's a very interesting question, and again, it's admitting vulnerability, I think, is something that's ingrained into men, into most men, not all men, to not reach out, to internalise all of those problems, all of those issues, because you should be able to deal with everything that comes along. It's a perception of weakness, I suppose, for men. And you don't want to be vulnerable, you don't want to be open, because I suppose the concern would be that other people would use those vulnerabilities against you. And so it's almost a paranoia, isn't it, in that you don't want others to use that and to perceive you as weak, because you want to be strong.
I have felt huge amounts of pressure that I've had to deal with alone. As a man, you're often expected to just deal with it, and are often looked down upon for seeking help.
I mean, I'm 41, so it's boys don't cry. Just get on with it, do these things. And it's pointed, it's directed at men from a very early age. We're told not to show our emotions, not to pass those on to other people. Internalise and focus on yourself. and be able to do those challenges. And we do it. We absolutely do that. We've grown into that. I've done that personally. I remember when I was a teacher, I did suffer with stress because I took on every single problem that was going around me. I was running a department, I was creating new programs for that department, I was running seclusion units, all at the same time, trying to run the world. And I think a lot of men try and do that, and not seeking that appropriate help at that time, thinking that other people can do things too. And I think men do that. They don't reach out and branch out for that other person, even when it's the right time to do so, even when the job can be better done with those other people, that we don't do that. The way I describe it, and it's to both men and women actually, it's one of the biggest strengths is actually to reach for support, is knowing when to reach out for support, is saying, I need the right person at the right time to help for this. I wouldn't call an electrician to fix a toilet. I'd call in a person who works in mental health to help me with my mental health. And if you're struggling at that time, that's a great strength that you've reached out. And I suppose it's telling men that look, engaging in support, talking to other people, even your friends, is a huge sign of strength. It's not a sign of weakness. And it's only going to build yourself up.
For a period of my life, alcohol and gambling had a significant impact on my well-being and sense of control. What began as occasional habits gradually developed into behaviours that affected my mental health, relationships and finances. Gambling in particular became a coping mechanism, something that provided a temporary escape but led to long-term harm and regret. There were times when losses felt unbearable, and I made decisions that I now recognise were driven by addiction rather than reason. Alcohol often amplified those emotions, creating a cycle that was difficult to break. Admitting the problem was painful but necessary. With support, I have worked to understand the triggers and underlying stresses that led to these behaviours, and I'm learning to manage them in healthier ways. This experience has changed my perspective, especially as someone training to work in education, to show me how easily people can be drawn into harmful habits and how important early education, awareness and support are. I hope to use my experience to help others avoid similar paths and to show that recovery and growth are always possible.